Hi, I'm Kelly Miller, president of Pine Needles, Mid Pines, and now Southern Pines Golf Club. And I'm here with noted architect and restorer extraordinaire Kyle Franz, and really here to update you a little bit about what's going on at Southern Pines Golf Club. We've been spending a lot of time on the big parts of the golf course, the bunkers, fairways, sandscapes, and etc., and really just started hard at it with the greens restoration. The greens will be restored to Bermuda grass, and we're using Mini Verde, which is the same strain of grass that we have here at Pine Needles and Mid Pines, and we thought we'd just keep it just for agronomical purposes. So we're really excited about the work that Kyle and his team have done so far, and happy to ask some questions that's been posed for us. So most of these Kyle will respond to, and I may add a little bit at some point. But thanks for all your questions, and let's go ahead, Kyle. You ready?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, the restoration Q&A part 2. These questions are geared more towards the greens, like Kelly just said. So we'll jump right into it. First question, are you working off the original plans to restore the greens, or is there some interpretation? Or are you using original drawings, or how is the green building process being developed?
Yeah, great question. Really the most complex of all the 3 restorations that we have done from a green standpoint. The greens have been changed to a degree during the 1990s, but also kind of somewhat followed the concept of the original hole, so they weren't moved around too much. A lot of them just had large expansions done at the front of the greens. We had surveys from the work that had been done in the 90s. We had the surveys what the greens generally look like, but we do not have Ross's original plans as we sometimes do on projects. So fortunately, I think it's almost, we went in the right order. The fact that we had Mid Pines, which I believe is probably the most well-preserved set of Ross greens anywhere. He was here for the construction and development of all of them, and the fact that we have refloated and got those all perfect really has that in the back of our minds with everything we do. The work we did at Pine Needles allowed us to add some details in that had slowly gone away just over the years and whatnot when we worked on them in 2016. Whereas here, we're using a lot of the things that we really learned, even though we don't have those original plans, to really get that the details in that Ross would have had out there originally. So it's a combination of both, a little history, a little improvisation, and just using our best educated guess to get the concept down of what he would have wanted on each and every hole.
Do you plan on creating new undulations on the greens, or using any sort of sub-air system in any of the complexes?
In terms of undulations, every green will have some sort of crucial element either improved, gaining lost hole locations, or removing features that made shots difficult to play, if not impossible. For example, greens like the 4th and the 2nd green, the 14th green, where it was very nearly impossible at high speeds of green speeds to putt from the top to the bottom. Those greens have been revamped to pick up new hole locations in the better portions of the greens where the shots aren't impossible, while making those other sections that were severe more like false fronts or sections of the greens that are on the wrong level. I really enjoy, the shots you have from the front of the 2nd green up onto the higher level, or 4 green. But it's those ones from the top down that were just, as we call it, off the hook. They were just too much. So we're going to make it to where you still have those fun putts that play up, and really, I think it almost gives you a lot of cool stuff that Donald Ross loved in the greens. Dornoch, St. Andrews, 2 of the greatest golf courses in the world for false fronts. That's some fun putts. So as for the really heavy hitting elements for agronomic purposes, a great question. Sub-air. The long and short of it is that's part of the draw of having Bermuda grass greens. You just simply don't need to have those hyper expensive extra things. If you have bent grasses in these really severe climates, you kind of need to start thinking about that if you have the money to do it. But in this case, it's one of the things we don't really need to do.
Yeah, we're also blessed being in the Sandhills area with the sandy soil. So between the slope on the greens to run the water off and the sand to absorb it, it really works. But one other point that Kyle was speaking about is just, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for the player to play the ground shots in, in terms of rolling it on or running it up versus doing everything in the air. And I think they'll find that there's a few holes out there that they'll almost have to do it, running it up versus the traditional through the air.
It's greens we're working on presently today, the 6th and 7th greens. Great false fronts on them, and that's what we've really worked the hardest on. Continuing back to previous answer, really where the changes occurred in a lot of cases on the greens were not at the rear of the greens, but in the front of them, where they expanded them out and raised them. That kind of it made where it was a little more of a wall effect at the front, where players couldn't skip up in the way that Ross intended. So we're lowering those back down, where players will be able to skip up. And I think that especially for hickory players or the guys who really like to try the fun ground shots, we had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
Right. For those that have played the course in the last couple of months, they've noticed that there's been more extensive work on the 11th and 13th greens. Can you explain why that's been the case?
Sure. So as we went through those original surveys that existed from when they had done the work in the 90s on the greens, we noticed there was 2 greens that were particular outliers from Ross's concept. Quite simply, they're more fall-away greens like you see at 9 at Mid Pines or 2 at Pine Needles, where the front of the green is higher than the back of the green. It's a very, very difficult shot. You have to kind of play for the bounce because it's just going to inevitably skip away from you. You don't have that support that you have from a back to front green. Those 2 greens, 13 and 11, are kind of backward. They had become more back to front greens as opposed to fall-aways, and that's part of the reason why. For many of the viewers out there, they know that the area in front of the 13th green was really very moist. The water was being pitched back the wrong direction from where Ross had designed the overall area to drain. So it was affecting drainage, and it was affecting bounce-up ability, and it was affecting the shots, and most importantly, it was just simply affecting the concept of what he wanted to accomplish on those holes. In the case of 13, there's a subtle up and over in the tee shot, very reminiscent of a lot of holes at Pine Needles, where if you hit a solely weak tee shot, you're back further, and that would be more difficult for a fall-away green. Whereas you get all the way to the crest of the hill or get a bounce forward, you get down there where you have a much shorter club in, and the runaway green isn't affected as much. So that one immediately jumped out at us as a really key one that we should, instead of trying to massage it, we should really work from scratch to make it what he intended. And the same with 11, where really the hallmark from an overall concept standpoint of Southern Pines is that each of these courses is a little bit different from each other. Mid Pines plays around the big bowl, lots of great side hills. The up and overs that I was just describing, the tee shots at Pine Needles, where you get the speed saw reflected in the landing zone. The concept of Southern Pines is, because of the nature of topography, it's really one of the best architectural studies in the clean green site. You get it on 2, you get it on 4, you get it on 7, 8. So it goes. The one in there that was kind of missing from what he had wanted was number 11, where they had built the green up and made a back to front green out of it, whereas he wanted it to be a green that was tipping and flowing down into the right. Really a great, drive and pitch, drivable sort of par 4, where it was that kind of clean green site that was it was driving force in the design. So two very good options. We kind of centered on those as the ones that we wanted to make sure we got back the way he intended.
Yeah, I think one of the neat things that I noticed is, in essence, what they had done is they had built on top of Ross's current green. And when the excavators got out there and dug it out, one of the cool things that we were able to find was some of Ross's original drain tiles. This terracotta pipe and and from the drainage that was there and the gravel that was there was still in perfect condition. So we might have posted something that but we'll make sure we get something else on it, and we're also going to put those on display out at Southern Pines, because it's a pretty cool stuff from a historical standpoint.
And we were able to use that in the same way that we do on many restorations, where you almost kind of use that grade as a building block for the. Well, you got the elevation on. You can start to put some of the contours back. The gentleman who was doing the demolition, as we call it, the pulling out of the materials from the old green, Dwayne McKinnon, who's worked with me going all the way back to Pinehurst number 2, I just told Dwayne, just follow every one of those terracotta pipes and it'll tell us the elevations that we need to be across the entire green.
Overall, would you say the greens are getting bigger, becoming smaller, or roughly staying around the same size?
They're getting slightly bigger. The greens had shrunken an enormous amount at Southern Pines. I believe that David told me it was somewhere in the 90 to 100,000 square foot range. We're expanding them out quite a bit. We still will actually be slightly smaller than the other two golf courses in terms of total square footage, but we'll be more commensurate with what you would expect with Donald Ross's work during that period. The scaling will kind of be, I've always kind of put it as, Ross's genius was solving the paradox in scale in architecture. Every green is the exact right size for the concept of the hole, and so we're trying to gun for exactly that. What's the right kind of shots that you're playing in?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you'll see is that there's just a lot more hole locations, a lot more variety,
Yep.
and also adding to the strategy of where you place your tee ball, so that when you're hitting the shot in, it really makes a difference to be on the proper side of the fairway. If the pin's to the left, you probably got to be right. So there's a lot more strategy that'll take place, which is what Ross was the master at.
And tons of great variety just in the greens that we've worked on already to date. There's elements of wine that would remind one a little bit of, his biggest influence is Dornick and St. Andrews. Some of the elements of the seventh grade would surely remind, someone of, say, like 9 green at Oakmont, which a lot of people don't realize. Ross actually did a little bit of consulting with them because he was such close friends with the Founds, some of the founding members of Mid Pines. So we think as we just continue to go through that analysis historically and follow the cues of what we see and find in the players on the ground, those things kind of come to life for us.
Is there a particular green that'll get the biggest expansion?
Probably 6, maybe.
I didn't jump on that one immediately because it's what we're working on today, so it immediately jumps to mind. But yes, I think probably 6 has the biggest change to it in terms of size. The green is actually even a little lower today. It's one of the few that was lowered from Ross's day, and by a few inches or so. And what we wanted to do is it's kind of a green set that kind of clings up to the hillside a little bit. And I know that he would have wanted for a hole like that for you to be able to bounce the ball onto the green. So it's a classic example where the back of the green had been a little lower, and then the front of the green was a little bit higher than it was. So what we've done is we've lowered a little bit of the front of the green, but we've especially done a very long false front that allows players to skip up onto the green. So instead of losing momentum in that shaggy, Bermuda grass fairway, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom of the slope, a la St. Andrews or, say the Foxy 14 green at Royal Dornick. We're going to go all the way to the bottom of that slope and really let players run up. So just in the same fashion that we did with, say, 16 green or 6 green at Mid Pines, really maximizing the ability to run down the slope. And I think that a lot of players that are familiar with those couple of golfers will immediately jump on, well, that's clearly what Ross's influence was here. This is right out of the Dornick and St. Andrews, sort of been. No reason, no surprise as to why I put Eamon Sullivan on it, who cut greens at St. Andrews for a couple of years. One of our shapers.
Good choice. Maybe too early to tell, but which green are you most excited about?
I get that question all the time about all the holes in general, and I've always been a very take care of the little things, the big things kind of take care of themselves kind of personality. So it'd be very hard for me to say at this point. I think I'll appreciate all the things that we do in their own sort of formats. I think that 8 has a ton of potential. The decisions we made around the green, where you can bleed off the slope to the right, there's a spine running through the middle of the green that will allow you, if it's a back right pin along the lake side, to hit a little bending fade off the middle of the green and kind of curl it to the right. If it's a left pin over the bunker, you can hit it at the spine and get it to curl to the left. Expert players like you and Blair, I can really see really having to think your way through that hole and really take advantage of the contours that we've amplified within the putting surface. But all of them have really, really good stuff. Especially where we're at today with the project, I would say that it's an even harder decision because so far I've been really excited, really happy with the work so far. This is the heaviest lifting we've had to do, the most creative we've had to do on any of the projects. But right now I feel like we're right in the game to where this should be as good and possibly better than all than the other golf courses. A heck of a neighborhood, but we're off to a really great start with it.
Yeah, I think it is tough to choose between them, but one of the holes that really kind of jumps out is number 11 out there, and just the cleaning that's been done, the tree removal, and basically kind of a drivable hole. And I think the contouring on that green will really make it for some fun shots and some great thrills, and also some great sadness as well.
Thrills for sure. Lots of opportunity to take a shot, and drive the green there. We really made it a really inviting target up there. Ross actually had the green site to where it was really minimal bunkering and things like that around the green. It was, again, just a dangling green site, just hanging out there, kind of coaxing you to take a wild shot at it and give it a go. And we followed those prompts exactly. You know, this from the tees, it really looks like the easiest place to go is around the green up there. Even though it's a pleasure to find. It can be a little bit of a bait and switch when they give it a go. So.
Well, speaking of tree removal, which hole was the biggest challenge to transform?
Maybe 10.
Yeah, 10. The answers came latest in the master plan process to me. We didn't have what we had on paper from all the documents we used, whether it's the 1930s aerials or the 1940s diagrams we have of the holes. I think the hole had already evolved a little bit. They had lost some grass on the left-hand side of the fairway, which made it kind of blind to us as exactly what he was trying to accomplish with the hole. So that one required quite a bit of work. And it's coming out great. And then one we really still have, down the line here is, I think that, Rand Morrison from Golf Caballas Golf Magazine said it best. He felt like 2 could be potentially the best par 5 and more counting. We're missing, and we're going to get done the next few weeks, the crossing feature across the hole, and trying to make it a little more attractive up and around the green site. We've gotten rid of the front right bunker, which really wasn't part of Ross's original design, and it was the hardest green to figure out how do we solve the problem of the 2 tiers, which really isn't Ross's things that were added to the 90s. How do we make that fit in with the rest of the golf course properly, but still be really fun and interesting to play? And we, after many hours in the field trying to figure that out, we pretty much got the concept nailed to where it's going to be a really cool, fun green. And so between that and the crossing hazard, which we talked about in previous interviews, that's really the hallmark of what we're trying to accomplish out there is get that 19 teens and 20s feel of Ross's, where it was a little more wild and a little more adventurous. You have to make a little carry every once in a while, so it'll be the player's first taste of that on the golf course. And we've solved the riddle of really what needed to happen around the green site to remove those, again, top to bottom putts are really very difficult, but you still get the really fun shots around the green to get his concept back. So we're looking forward to closing that one out.
All right, what are some of the nuances at Southern Pines that you love? Some of the things that someone might not see or recognize their first time around?
Well, I think you'll see it, but the thing about Southern Pines is just the tremendous topography over there is what I think people will notice the most, and the elevation, the variety of shots that they have, uphill, downhill, side hill, and while we've done a lot with the trees and the tree removal, we've still really only done the tree removal kind of for the project. In order to get grass growing where we need to, and etc. We still need to remove a lot of trees to get the sight lines so you can kind of see through the golf course, which is a combination of tree removal and also just raising the canopy on the trees that are there. So it'll provide some really breathtaking vistas for looking all the way around. One of the things that's really neat is just all the tree removal that's been done around number 8 and around number 11, so you can kind of sit out there and see a panorama of holes. We've still got a lot to do around the 10th hole, which we're not going to get accomplished right now, but eventually that'll be some kind of vista right up there for all those holes.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head. The great views that we've established out there. There's some really great subtlety in Ross's design. Places where he would use ridge lines to obscure sections of the fairway where you're intending to hit to, like the right side of the first hole, the bunkers off the tee, hide the landing zone. There's bunkers further down the fairway, and it just looks from the tees like there's nothing but bunkers up the whole right-hand side of the hole. When in reality, that's the section of the fairway we're going to be aiming towards. So he did that on number 12 as well, where it really masks the precise place where you're supposed to be hitting from. But where I am most excited about the work is the things we kind of touched on before. Is how we're really going to restore the great ground game elements. The holes like the first, the fifth, especially. One of the greens we have coming up here in our next run that I just can't wait to get into is the fifth green, where we have a fantastic concept for the front of the green that we think Ross had. The sixth that we were talking about, seven, as opposed to just being a wall, it's an all aerial shot. You can skip up and really have some fun there. Second, with that on number 8, we've worked very hard to try and get to where players will have a shot skipping up on number 9 as opposed to being all aerial. And so it goes to the property, 11, 13, 17, even subtly 18, where before, again, if you came up short, the only thing that would happen is you rub well back down the slope course. Now there's some different options and whatnot where you wind up around the greens and opportunities to skip up. And I think it's going to be really, really fun stuff out there. I think it's going to be one of the best ground game golf courses in the neighborhood.
Yeah, just as a kind of an overall update, where we are with the greens, we basically have working on 10 greens, 10 greens that are kind of complete. When I say complete, meaning shaped. We still have not done the spraying out for Bermuda grass and etc. And then we'll start sprigging those first 10 greens on June 24th. So today's the 9th, so we'll do that on the 24th. Work on the remaining ones. We'll continue during that time, and then obviously sprigging them sometime the first week of July, and then anxiously awaiting September 1, which is, if Mother Nature cooperates, that's our target date for opening.
Yeah, and so far the weather's been pretty cooperative during the course of the green projects. We've been past projects we've taken our lumps at certain different times, especially the Pine Needles project where we had a bunch of greens done. We had to kind of go back and fix them for other storms, but the weather's been really good, and we're pretty much smack on schedule with the greens right now. So far so good.
Yeah.
Perfect lead into the next question, which was, last video we said September 1st was going to be the date we were shooting for. So a lot of questions as to whether, one, are we still on schedule, but more so, how long do you think it'll take the course to mature into itself, to where you're getting the finished product that you're envisioning?
I feel really good about where we're going to be at in September. There's a lot of little things and nuances we kind of need to work on at the periphery, native areas and whatnot, and honing in how the golf course is going to play day to day. I've always made the analogy, going all the way back to when I worked on Pinehurst number 2, is that it's sort of like a game of catch between us and Mother Nature. We take the work and we make it look as natural as we can, and we hand it off to Mother Nature for a while, and it kind of throws it back to us, and we work on it a little bit more, and really within a year, you can hardly tell you ever did any work on it at all, and you really enjoy as an architect, and for someone like myself that started as a shaper and a finisher going all the way back to Pacific Dunes, you really enjoy coming back and see what Mother Nature's kind of giving you. This site has been really very, very helpful in that category already. Some of the bunkers that we've done, say, on the right-hand side of the first hole, they've taken on a completely natural look faster than any of the 3 courses that I worked on here before. It took years for them to look that natural, say Pinehurst number 2 and whatnot. So it's been going along really well in that category, we have more than enough time to grow in the greens, and this kind of Bermuda grass just grows in gangbusters, and we hit the September period, it's growing so fast you can hardly keep up with it, and we're going to have to do a lot of tactics to try and get the fairways, continue to improve the stand and turn between aerifying and fertilizing and whatnot this summertime. So I feel like our timetable is really very good, and just a lot of areas around the golf course, we just allow the grasses to kind of grow up and see what Mother Nature's going to give us. So we have a really great mature look and see what's coming up. And some of the areas in the periphery have really had more natural plants come up than the other courses we worked on tenfold. So I really feel like we're in a really good spot where Mother Nature's given us a hand, and we get the right tactics in place.
To those who haven't been to Southern Pines in a while, I think you'll see a phenomenal transformation. and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I know I'm very excited about it, but also realistically, now having gone through the restoration process at Mid Pines at 13 and Pine Needles at 17, it takes a couple of years for it to really all kind of fit in there. But I do agree with Kyle. There's a lot of work and a lot of talented people, so I think we're overall a little ahead of the game with than we were with the other courses.
Well, guys, that's all the questions we have for this segment. Thank you both for your time, and we'll catch you on the next installment.
Sounds good. See you out there.
We look forward to seeing you folks out there, and if you're in the area, please feel free to go on out there and take a look at it. It's you'll see transformation on a daily basis. So hope to see you out there.